Got yeah, here we are. All right, live Q&A, couple minutes late. Par for the course. I do apologize. My life is beyond busy. A lot going on, a lot of new ventures, new businesses, so on and so forth. We've been recruiting, got a bunch of people here doing interviews, people coming down to check us out, etc. It's just an exciting time in Ecuador, an exciting time in Vilcabamba. I think an exciting time in the world for sure, but there is definitely pluses and minuses, places that are better and worse as well in different parts of the world. So again, welcome. This is a live Q&A, investing in Ecuador. Again, really an interesting time, right? So I think what we're seeing. Well, actually, let me start with the retreat. So we have our first retreat coming up here on July 16th. People are signing up. In fact, I should throw the link in the chat. I will do so now. That's going to be really fun. And we even do have a whole bunch of investor related seminars and panels and Q&As, I should say, and panels in that retreat. So that's going to be helpful for sure for people who are looking to invest. We'll have a topic. We have accounting, we have construction, we have an investing in Ecuador panel as well. We have legal as well, the legal framework in Ecuador, etc. So that'll be really nice. It's an 8-day retreat. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Carl's going to lead it. It will be, again, July 16th is the start date. It's sort of a crash course on Vilcabamba, on Ecuador, on life and investing and everything else here. We really try to get people immersed and integrated, a little bit into the culture, into the community, get a great sense of the different areas of what's available here, of what life is like here, what people are up to here, the different things that are possible, so on and so forth. So sign up for that. The link is there in the chat. Okay, beyond that, yeah, exciting time in Ecuador for sure. It's really interesting. I think, if I look at the last 2 years and I sort of assess the last 2 years, I got down to Ecuador in 2013. Excuse me, I seem to get the hiccups every time I go live. I got down to Ecuador in 2013, and I kind of came down here with the hypothesis of what is now transpiring, which is that the investment world and just people in general at some point will realize the value of what places like Ecuador have to offer, right? So a place that's extremely resource rich, mineral rich, natural resource rich in every way, does not have winter, has a ton of arable land, has a year-round growing season, amazing water, amazing soil, amazing air, all those sorts of things, is sparsely populated, is a society and a culture that is not highly developed in the sense that people have been removed many, many layers from their resources, their food, their water, the sort of natural and normal and human ways of living. And so what's happened here over the last couple of years is that hypothesis has started to play out, right? So we're seeing now with the supply chain disruptions, if you're in an area that's highly reliant on all kinds of systems and supplies and things like that, life has gotten a little bit more difficult and more expensive. We've seen now with some of the food shortages and some of the issues there with, prices skyrocketing and wheat and other commodities, you're seeing inputs really increase. You're seeing inflation, and you're seeing people start to realize, hey, growing food, pretty good idea. Investing in agriculture, pretty good idea. Arable land, farmland, right? We've got, people like Bill Gates. I think he's the largest farmer in the world, right? I think he owns the most farmland probably in the world. A lot of people have positioned themselves in these ways going way back for a reason, right? They saw, so I think that what's happened here over the last couple of years that I've seen is sort of with COVID and the pandemic and all the things that went on during that time, the playing field has flipped a bit, right? We've got the dollar being printed kind of out of control. People are starting to realizing what that increase in money supply does to the value of the currency, to cost of living and all these sorts of things. And realizing the importance of, those natural resources and the water and the food and farming and all that kind of stuff. So we're in a time here where what Ecuador has to offer has gained momentum as far as international interest to a very, very high degree. It's a comfortable place to live. Again, there's no winter, and all those things I just mentioned. So both on the demand side for just people wanting to be here and live here, and on the demand side for people wanting to invest in things like mining or agriculture, or all those sorts of businesses that are sort of inflation proof, right? Those kinds of investments that are inflation proof, where if commodity prices are rising at a high rate and you're in that business, that's okay, right? So it's really an interesting time. What we've seen in the investing landscape here has been a major shift in the last couple of years, where I think, again, I think people are a little bit more concerned in asset classes that in the past were considered safe, right? Whether that's, index funds or bonds, or, even money market accounts, right? I think people are starting to realize those might not be as safe as they once were, and are looking for some diversity and are looking to get into asset classes that potentially will be the safety of the future. And I think that, cultural land, producing food, so on and so forth, in Ecuador and places like Ecuador, are what that will be going into the future. Ecuador is a very small country. It's the potential. It's approximately the size of Colorado. Half of that is essentially jungle, so you can cut that in half right off the bat. Then outside of that, much of the country is mountainous, so you can take large swaths already of half the size of Colorado, pull that out of the equation. So what you're left with is a country that has a limited amount of flat space, right? And so, because Ecuador is an investable place now, right? We have a business-friendly president, a capital-friendly president who's friendly to capital, movement of capital, investing, business. We have a very safe country, a great culture. We have no restrictions to foreign business, foreign ownership, foreign really anything at all in the country. We have a great infrastructure here, et cetera, et cetera. So Ecuador is an investable country. Because of that, and because of the story that I sort of just told that the international investment community is starting to wake up to, as capital floods in, there's a limited amount of land that's going to be, supply, right, essentially to meet that demand. And so that's going to change the price equation pretty quickly here as that sort of filters through and starts to really play out. We're at the extreme beginning of that now. In certain places, we're seeing it a bit, but most of rural Ecuador is still essentially inaccessible for the international community because they don't understand it. It's not being marketed in any sort of accessible way. And so people just kind of don't have access to it, right? So that's partly what we do. Part of what we sort of bring to investors ourselves is opportunities to invest into the things that Ecuador has to offer without having to go through the learning curve of years, which is what it takes to understand the culture and the climate and make the relationships and build those relationships and have that in place to be able to function here. Because without that, you just can't. So, okay, that's probably enough of me giving some overview there. Again, thanks so much for joining me today. If you can hit the like button, share, subscribe, hit the bell, we would greatly appreciate it. If you have questions, this is a live Q&A, and I'll jump into the first one here. So Vitaly asked, if you buy land and register it under a business name, can that still be used towards a visa? If yes, how does that work? All registered owners. Yes, the answer to that question is yes, you can register land in a company that you own and use that for your visa. The value of the company, of the way that, so I have to put you in touch with a lawyer to get super specific on this. I know the answer is yes, but they have some way where they assess the value of that company, and then whoever owns that company, the numbers would have to work. So in other words, I think right now it's around 42,500 or something like that for this year that you have to prove as value for the investor visa. So if you had, for example, if it's just a piece of land, you can have multiple people get their investment visa through the same piece of land, but it has to cover the value. So in other words, you'd have to have, if you had $1 million piece of land, that would approximately cover about 25 people, right? Because you're at about 42.5. So it has to cover the number, but that's my understanding. You can definitely do it through a corporation. That adds a layer of complexity that I'm not familiar with all of those details, but that is how that works, and it is doable. Brian, I said, smash the like button if you love opportunities. I appreciate it, Brian. Please do smash the like buttons. And Brian, I had a nice conversation. I think it's Jeff. Was it Jeff? I think it was Jeff, but I may be getting that name wrong the other day. The golf course guy, that was really great. He'll be an excellent resource for us. I very much appreciate you reaching out and giving us that contact. He seems like a great guy. I really enjoyed talking to him, so I appreciate that quite a bit. Rick says, would you recommend buying land or CDs for investment visa? That's such a personal choice. You can get a decent rate of return on a CD here. You can still get, upwards of 7% on a CD. That being said, I'm a little skeptical personally in the value of the currency, globally, really all currencies, just be based on the amount of printing that's gone on in recent years. And if there's going to be hiccups in the debt markets or hiccups in the currency markets, that would not be good for the banks. And I could see things getting strange there, not in Ecuador, but anywhere, right? So that's my own personal take. I wouldn't, tell anyone else to go off of that. That's just what I believe. And I look at land as something that, is going to continue to increase in value here into the future. Again, in my opinion, as food becomes more expensive, as the cities for all kinds of reasons. So that would be my take on it. Vitaly asks, how about their family that are not in the business ownership, like children? Yeah, so that should be fine. Again, if it was not through a corporation, I know the answer for sure. The corporation adds a layer, but I'm nearly 100% positive that I am 100% positive you can do it through a corporation, but I'm also almost 100% positive it doesn't change the formula. So your dependents, the government considers your dependents, your family, it increases the value that you need to show for the visa slightly. I don't know if these rules have changed ever so slightly. They may have. We have an interview. I'll put it in the chat. This will answer all your questions on this stuff. But they have. It used to be $500 more per dependent. If that number has changed, it wouldn't be by much. So it's possible that it's slightly higher now. But this was an interview that I'm going to put in a link in the chat that will answer all your visa questions. And the guy who I'm interviewing, Joseph Uznai, is an excellent resource. I definitely recommend you reach out to him. If you need to do higher level visa stuff through corporations, things like that, you can reach out to us and we can put you in touch with attorneys who are a little bit more in the corporate world. Okay, Brian asks, can a business owner bring in a container for their business in addition to a container for their home? Yes, his name is Jeff. Hope it all works out. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I'm not even sure the answer to that question. I don't believe a business owner that I know of has any sort of special rights to tax-free containers. Now, there are certain items that are tax-free, and there's definitely lots of tax breaks for certain sectors of the economy, certain businesses, new businesses, etc. So yeah, there's that, but I haven't heard of any rules surrounding the ability to bring in a container tax-free through a business. Okay, Rick says, do you have contacts there with contractors for house building that have integrity? What would be a typical time frame, say, for a 1,200 square foot bungalow and costing all in? Yeah, great question. Definitely, we have contacts for that. That's number one. We've been doing business here since January of 2014, so we've been through the wars, so to speak, as far as figuring out who's good and who's bad, and who you can trust and who you can't, who follows through and who doesn't. To sum that all up, who has integrity, and we have absolutely been successful in that process and can put you in touch with a number of extremely reputable reputable builders who have great integrity, who we stand by their work because you can. So that's the first part of that. Time frame. Okay, so you need about 3 months normally to go through the design and permissions process. You can speed that up a little bit, but typically about 3 months. Then your build time just depends on how fast you want to go and how much capacity, how many workers can the contractor, what I'm going to refer to as the contractor, which they really don't have here, but the builder can have there. Typically, I like to tell clients the whole process is going to be 12 months, but that leaves a lot of room built in for things to go wrong. You can get it done definitely in 6 to 9 months. I'd say 9 months is pretty typical, where you have 3 months for your permissions and your design, and then 6 months for your build. So that's a pretty typical time frame. 1,200 square foot home is not a large home. That would cut a little time off of that as well. So that's sort of your basic answer. Yeah, so that's really that's on the construction side, and there's demand here right now for homes. So if you're an investor or a builder even who's interested in building houses either for resale or just building houses because you're good at building houses, Vilcabamba in this area right now really has a the supply is very tight. Basically what happened was we had a crash in the economy in 2014, got really bad in 15 and 16. Yeah, that's right, really bad in 15 and 16. Nothing really sold during those years. So really anything that was on the market, that people wanted to sell during those years, just sat. So there was a lot of inventory heading into the end of 16 into 17 when things started to sell. We slowly recovered there for a while. So things were selling in 17 up until about 2020. But it took really those 3 years or so to work through that inventory. Then when COVID happened and you had the restrictions and people weren't doing much for a while, that coincided with city dwellers in Ecuador, locals, right, wanting to leave the city. And so they all started building and coming and buying, I should say, in the country, right, in these towns. And then at the same time, internationally, people started wanting to live here in much larger numbers. And there wasn't a lot of construction going on because of the pandemic. And so what happened during that time was that inventory, got worked through pretty quickly. And we're now in a time where there's not a ton of homes available. There's always some, but there's not a ton of homes available. People are, continue to move to the area. It's getting more and more popular. And it's a time where, if you are in that business, it's a good time to be in that business. Rick asks, would you recommend buying pre-existing builds as opposed to building? I mean, look, if this had been, if you'd asked me that question 2+ years ago, the answer would have been there's really more value in pre-existing builds. And that's because it was really a buyer's market where, homes were selling pretty much at replacement cost and sometimes below. We're now in a time where that's no longer the case. So people now are getting a premium for the house for sure. And then the other factor, I guess there's 2 more factors to consider, right? One is obviously if you're building your own home, you can custom make it, tailor it to your needs and, make it as you want. The other thing to consider is that there's a lot of shoddy construction here. Just because, yes, we know the good builders, but, of all the builders in the area, I would say, 5% or less are probably, are good at what they do. So it's really not something, it's really something where there is, obviously you can mitigate that risk. And if you're working with us, of course, we'll help you do that. But, you can mitigate that risk, looking at it, having an inspection done, so on and so forth. But there is some shoddy construction that goes on. So that's just something to consider as well. Hey, Chris, good to see you on here. All right, guys, I'm probably going to hop out of here. If there's 1 or 2 more quick ones, I'll take them before I do. It is Friday evening. It's a beautiful sunny day here today. I got to play some basketball this morning. We're up to 3 days a week on the basketball. So that's a lot of fun. Such a great community here of guys. Tomorrow we got a bike ride with the kids in the morning. So that'll be fun. I try to take the weekends off. I basically go from 4 a.m. until about 8 or 9 p.m. during the week. We're setting up a lot of new stuff. There's a lot going on, a lot of new investment projects, investors, companies, so on and so forth. We're also launching a tour company as well. So we'll have some news on that in the coming weeks. And again, we do have this retreat, which I really recommend if anybody's interested in Ecuador. The goal of this retreat is to provide, a ton of value for anyone that's coming down. We want people, who come to this retreat to leave knowing everything. Is this right? Is this place right for them or not? Can they do the things they want to do here or not? That's really the goal of the retreat. I put the sign up or the link to the retreat, I should say, up towards the top of the chat. So with that being said, again, please hit the like button. If you're enjoying this content, hit the bell, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Have a lovely weekend, and I will talk to you guys soon. One more question hidden coming under the gun. I'll go ahead and answer it. Would it be possible to lease some of your land to local farmers? Sure, that's common. People do that all the time, but you're not going to get much of a return doing that for sure. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.